America. Coming to you live on YouTube and on Facebook every day at 10:30 in the morning. We come out and talk to you about sports, and more sports. Today we're going to dedicate this show to what is going to happen this weekend in the NFL. Should be an amazing weekend. Got a huge show. We're going to talk about Deshaun Watson and his new outrage. Top coaching vacancies across the NFL. We'll rank them 1 to 5. We'll talk about who's going to make it to the Hall of Fame. The nominees around. We think we know what's going to happen. Then Lance Fernandez will be joining us, and we'll be talking about our playoff picks for the weekend. We'll dive into the mailbag, and then we're going to end the show with a super happy story about a guy who can die happy. It's kind of weird, but that's what we're going to be talking about today on the What's on Sports podcast. My name is John Todora, and I'll be your host throughout this wacky ride that we're going to take throughout the sports landscape. I do want to remind everybody before we go any further, if you're watching at home, if you're listening, you probably can't see this. You can listen to the show, download it on all of your favorite podcast platforms. But if you're watching at home, you can probably see the little thing on the top here that tells you that our show is sponsored by our friends over at Sports Trading Systems. Today, you can go over to Sports Trading System and learn the secret to how this new system, this new methodology is changing the landscape of sports wagering and taking it from a game of risk into a game of investments. That's right. You can learn how to trade sports like other people trade stocks over at sportstradingsystems.com. Just go over there right now and check it out. It's your time to do it. These guys are just destroying the game right now. Up 68% in the NBA season so far this year. And if you don't know what that means if you would have invested $1,000 into a bankroll, you'd right now have $1,680  2 weeks into a NBA basketball season. I mean, they are absolutely crushing it over there, looking at record numbers. So go over and check out sportstradingsystems.com today. Now, there are some things I want to talk about. And one of the things I want to kind of get off my chest is when I think of sports, I always think of it for what it is. Sports is entertainment. Therefore, it is a business. It's being run by somebody who actually owns the business. Sometimes it's being run by, as in Green Bay, by a conglomerate of people. There are investors. There are people that have put money at risk and at stake that have a chance to lose money every year. Now, the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, most of these teams never lose money. But somebody somewhere along the way had to risk money somewhere in order to get enough money to buy an NFL team. Now, for older team members, like owners like the Rooneys or the owners of the Giants, they've owned these teams for so long that they paid very little for them compared to what today's value is. But at some point, somebody made an investment and somebody made a risk. And therefore, as with any business, whoever makes that risk is usually the one who should make the decisions. They make the decisions for what they think is best for their company and for their brand. There's a new age of sports out there, though, and these new players are constantly thinking, or have been told, even by the media, that they should have decisions on how teams are run. For example, LeBron James is famously known for constructing his rosters in Cleveland, with the Lakers right now, and even had some stay whenever he was playing for the Heat. I don't see a lot wrong with that in particular. You know, deciding who you want to play with is one thing. Deciding the finances of sports is something completely different. Deciding who your coach should be doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. Like when they talk about these players who are upset that they didn't get a chance to pick their coach, I'm always like, why would you get to pick who's going to be your coach? What qualifies you to decide who should lead this team and who should teach everyone on this team, not just yourself? You are a player. Similarly, imagine owning a restaurant, your chef telling you who you should hire as your manager or who you should hire as your waitresses. The chef should take care of the kitchen and could be fully in charge of all the cooks, the dishwashers, and anything else that happens inside his department. That's how businesses are run. Successful businesses are compartmentalized, and different parts of the businesses are run by different people. Well, that brings us to what I'm talking about today, which is Mr. Deshaun Watson, who is the quarterback for the Houston Texans. And Deshaun Watson has come out, and not publicly, but through proxies, has said that he's very upset with the fact that the Houston Texans have hired a general manager and that Mr. Watson was not consulted. Mr. Watson, who is a 25-year-old quarterback who has done very little in his life except be an exceptional football player, thinks that he, for some reason, should have been consulted on who is going to guide the entire franchise. I don't understand the logic here. A general manager has so many jobs, and it really depends from team to team how each organization runs what they run and what the responsibilities of each general manager is. But for those of you that think the general manager is just simply the guy who hires the coach and helps with the draft, and that's all he does, you're really confused. What you're really dealing with is someone who deals with most of the time, all aspects of the football organization. And it could be anything from making sure that the locker rooms are up to COVID specifications, the salary cap, it could be ticket sales, it could be concession sales, it could be all of these things that could be encompassed inside the general manager's job. So I would imagine that the best person to pick someone who's going to manage the day-to-day business of their operation would be the owner of the business, or at the very least, some type of board of directors that would make the decision. Then the general manager would pick the coach, and the coach would pick the players. Now, most times coaches get there and there's already players in place. But at no time, especially in the NFL, has an NFL player had the opportunity to pick his own coach and to pick his own general manager. Deshaun Watson should not have that ability. No player should, in fact. I don't care. Tom Brady's 42 years old and had zero control over anything when he left New England. Now, there is some rumor and some speculation that Tom has had some say in some of the players he'd like to come play for him in Tampa. And that's fine. I think Tom Brady should throw to the players he'd like to throw to, especially if the team can afford them. So if you want to bring in an Antonio Brown on a personal relationship, you want to bring in a Gronkowski on a personal relationship, you should be able to do that. That should be something that you're allowed to do. But you should not be allowed to pick your coach. You should not be allowed to pick your general manager. And anybody on TV right now who is telling you that Deshaun Watson should have anything to do with picking these people is out of their mind. This is not a new world. This is the same world we've lived in for a very long time. And people who know business should decide business. And people who throw good balls should throw good balls. I would gladly accept the opinion of Deshaun Watson on anything that had to do with football. I would not accept his opinion on anything that had to do with business. And that's just the way it goes. That's my opinion on Deshaun Watson.